What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Oak Tree Football Channel, and welcome to another 2020 college football schedule breakdown and record prediction. Today, I'm going to be looking at South Carolina's 2020 schedule, and I'm going to be making my prediction for them this year. The South Carolina Gamecocks had some okay seasons before last year, but last year they only won 4 games, which is not great. But one of those wins came against Georgia, who, of course, nearly made it to the college football playoff last season. Jake Bentley was supposed to be their starting quarterback last year, but he got injured early in the season, and he recently got transferred to Utah. So Ryan Hillinski will be taking over as quarterback, and he did play quarterback for the most of last season, but this year he will be the full-time starter. One serious loss they had was Brian Edwards on the offense. He was their wide receiver, and he's going to leave a huge hole at the wide receiver position, and they're going to need to see someone step up right there. And then another loss is Javon Kinlaw, who was a first-round pick in the NFL draft. He was their defensive tackle. He was one of the best defensive tackles in the country. So they're losing some talent, but I still think it can be a pretty good year for the Gamecocks. They had a pretty good recruiting class, but the problem is they have a very tough schedule. In my opinion, it is one of the toughest in the SEC, maybe the toughest in the SEC. But I'm excited to see what South Carolina can do this season, so let's get into this prediction. Went 4-8 last year, like I said, and they had the 18th best recruiting class in the country, so it's a pretty good recruiting class. SEC teams normally have good recruiting classes, but still, it is a good recruiting class for South Carolina. They started off with a game against Coastal Carolina. I think they should win this one. Maybe Coastal Carolina can make it closer than expected, but South Carolina should win. And then they play another Carolina team in week 2. They have to play East Carolina. East Carolina just is not that good. They're fine, honestly, and I think it can be a better game than against Coastal Carolina, but I still think South Carolina should win those 2 out-of-conference games to start the season. And then they have their 3rd home game of the year against Missouri, their first in-conference game. Missouri is a very interesting team. I expect Missouri to be about average this season. Maybe make a bowl game, but probably around 6-6, 5-7 for them. But this is going to be an interesting game. It's probably not going to be the most entertaining game to watch this week, just because 2 not great teams going up against each other. But I still think it can be a pretty interesting game because South Carolina is pretty good, in my opinion. I mean, they're not anything great, but for about mid-tier SEC teams, they're pretty good. And I think Missouri's okay, too. So I could see South Carolina struggling against Missouri, but them being at home, I think they can get the win. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 start for South Carolina this season. I think they could lose that game, but I'm going to give them a win at home. Week 4, they play Kentucky. This is going to be a tough one. Kentucky, I don't think is necessarily anything special, but I do not think they are bad. I think they are a good SEC team, but I don't think they're on the level that teams like Bama, Georgia, LSU, even Auburn, Florida, and maybe even Texas A&M. I just don't think they're on those levels, but they are still a very good team. So I can see this being a tough one for South Carolina, especially because it's a road game. South Carolina had a huge upset last year against Georgia, and I do think they could have another big upset this year, but I just don't think it's going to come in week 4 against Kentucky, just because Kentucky is definitely better than South Carolina. South Carolina could get the upset, though. I do think that's a possibility. But because Kentucky's at home, I think that really gives Kentucky a lot of a better chance to win. If this is a home game for South Carolina, there could be a serious upset in this one. But I feel it's going to be tough for South Carolina to win on the road in this one. So I think I'm going to give the win to Kentucky. Like I said, it could be a South Carolina win. We could see an upset, but I think the safer bet is going to be a Kentucky win. Week 5, I don't really see them winning this one on the road at Florida. Florida is a team that I think could get upset this year by someone like Ole Miss, but I just don't see it happening to South Carolina. Florida definitely has a lot of talent, like Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts, 2 fantastic players in their offense, arguably 2 of the best in even the country, honestly. So Florida definitely has a lot of talent, and I don't really see them losing to South Carolina. They have talent on their defense as well. They're only really losing C.J. Henderson. They are losing some other pieces, but that's the only real important piece, in my opinion, that they're losing. That huge piece, they definitely are losing some other important pieces, but he's their only real huge piece that they lost. So Florida should still be good this year. They could be challenging for potentially even a playoff spot. I just don't see South Carolina winning at Florida. It's a road game for them, obviously, so I don't see them winning. If it's a home game, this could be another upset, but I just don't really see it happening. Even if it was at home, I'd probably still go with Florida, but I feel pretty comfortable picking Florida in this one. Week 6, they play Tennessee. Tennessee is pretty good in my opinion. Probably about similar level to Kentucky, maybe a bit better than Kentucky, but still pretty good team. But South Carolina could get an upset in this one. This is a home game for South Carolina, but it is going to be tough coming off a game on the road against Florida. And Tennessee definitely is better than South Carolina. This could be a big upset. I think this is one of the more likely upsets. If South Carolina is going to get an upset this season, I feel like this is one of the more likely games they'll get that upset in. But I still don't see it very likely that they will win, just because Tennessee definitely is better than South Carolina in my opinion. And I think it's going to be tough for South Carolina to win. It's possible, but I think that Tennessee is going to be a good team this season. Very interested to see how Jared Guarantano plays, their quarterback. But I still think that it will be a good year for Tennessee. Especially, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how Jared Guarantano plays, but I think he'll play well enough to get a Tennessee win here. Then they have their bye week. This is a well-placed bye because coming off a tough game, it's going into a tough game, and it splits your season in half, 6 games and 6 games. So this is a very, very well-placed bye in my opinion. Week 8, they go into a pretty tough game when they play Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a team I expect to be pretty good this year. They definitely have a lot of talent on their team. I think Kellen Mond can be have a big step up this season, and they definitely have some more talent other than Kellen Mond on their offense and their defense. I think South Carolina could get an upset in this one as well because they're coming off a bye week, and it's a home game for them. But I do feel Texas A&M is one of the better SEC teams, definitely better than Tennessee, in my opinion, better than Kentucky. So I do think it's possible South Carolina wins. It's just going to be tough. I do feel like it's definitely possible South Carolina is going to get a big upset this year because they did just that last year against Georgia. And I feel that Tennessee or Texas A&M is one of the more likely spots for that to happen, maybe even Kentucky. But for most of the other games, I don't really see them getting an upset. Week 9, they play on the road at Vanderbilt. It's a road game, but Vanderbilt just is not that good of an SEC team. In my opinion, they are the worst SEC team. Maybe Arkansas is worse, but they're probably the worst in my opinion. Even though this is a road game, I think South Carolina should win here. Week 10, they play Georgia, the teams they beat last year. It's going to be tough for them to win this season, though, in my opinion. I think Georgia's getting better. I think Georgia got better this offseason. They definitely have a lot of talent. Jamie Newman, it's going to be very interesting to see how he plays. I think he can be pretty good. I could see him struggling as well, but I predict he will be a pretty good quarterback this season. This is going to be a tough one for South Carolina, even though it's a home game for them. I just don't think they'll get the upset 2 years in a row. I think I'm going to pick Georgia in this one. I just think that Georgia's too good. And I really don't see South Carolina getting the upset 2 years in a row. Even though it's a home game, I'm going to take Georgia in this one. Week 11, they have a road game where they play LSU, the defending national champions. LSU's losing a lot, though, but they still are very well coached with Ed Orgeron. They still definitely have a lot of talent going into this season. And even though they probably will have some problems early in the year, they'll probably have most of those problems figured out at this point in the season. And I don't think South Carolina is going to win this one, if I'm honest. It's a home game for LSU. I just don't see it happening. South Carolina is not close to as good as LSU is, and it's a home game for LSU. So I think LSU should get the pretty comfortable win. Week 12, they'll play Wofford. I don't think they should have a problem in this one. They're better than Wofford. They should get a win at home, and then to end the season, they play against Clemson in week number 13. In my opinion, Clemson is the best team in the country. You can make an argument Ohio State is better, and I definitely think that can be possible. But in my opinion, Clemson is just the best. And this is a road game for South Carolina, and I just don't see them winning. This is just way too tough a game, and I really don't see much of a chance that they're going to win this one. I don't see it being close at all. Clemson just has way too much talent, especially compared to South Carolina. I don't see this being a close game at all. I see Clemson winning just with Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. They have so much. They're returning so much, and it should be a great year for Clemson. Probably an undefeated season. So now, as I always do, I'll go through each game once again. I'll give my prediction for I think will win. Week 1, Coastal Carolina. I'm going to say South Carolina. I think they'll beat East Carolina as well in Week 2. And I think they'll beat Missouri in Week 3. Week 4, I think they'll lose to Kentucky. This is a game that I could see them getting an upset, but I do think they will lose just because they are on the road. I think they'll definitely lose to Florida. I feel comfortable saying that. And I think it's possible they beat Tennessee, but it's just a lot more likely that Tennessee's going to win, so I'm going to pick Tennessee. They have their bye then. And then Week 8 is the same as the Tennessee game. I think it's possible that they beat Texas A&M, but Texas A&M is it's the safer bet. Texas A&M is better than them, so I'm going to pick Texas A&M. Week 9, they have Vanderbilt. That should be a win in my opinion. I think they'll lose to Georgia, lose to LSU, beat Wofford, and lose to Clemson to go 5-7 on the season. I do think that South Carolina has the talent to make a bowl game. I really do think so. They just have a tough schedule. For me, there's 4 games that I definitely think they'll lose. That's at Florida, probably Georgia, at LSU, and at Clemson. I just don't see them winning those games. I don't see them upsetting Georgia again, and I just don't see them beating Florida, LSU, or Clemson on the road. I think that they will most likely lose to Kentucky because it's a road game, but I could see them beating Tennessee or Texas A&M, getting a big upset. But I am going to give them a loss in those games. And then one more game that I think could be tough is Missouri. It's a home game, and I think they will win, but they could lose there. So worst case for me is probably 4-8. Best case, if everything goes right, if Hillinski plays better than expected, maybe this team can go 8-4, beat Kentucky, beat Tennessee, beat Texas A&M. But I do think they will lose to Florida, Georgia, and LSU and Clemson. It's not very likely they go 8-4. It's not likely at all. But I think 5-7 is a safe bet for them this season. I think 6-6 could make sense too. I just think it's gonna be tough for them to get a big upset because the SEC is just such a tough conference. If they're gonna get an upset, it's gonna be against Kentucky, Tennessee, or Texas A&M, in my opinion. But these are my current thoughts for the South Carolina Gamecocks at the moment. What are your guys' thoughts? Tell me in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. And if you are new around here, feel free to subscribe for more daily NFL and college football content. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.